Welcome into the KSR Football Podcast. I'm Nick Rouch, here to confirm that Kentucky won the bye week. We did it, everybody. Won the bye week. Got a big dub over bye. The Cats improved to 3-2 on the season with the win over bye. I'm Nick Rouch with Drew Franklin, Adam Luckett, and Max Duffy here to talk about it. I don't think anybody won the bye week more than Drew Franklin. Drew, how we feeling?
Doing well. You know, my Titans and Kentucky Wildcats had the weekend off, so I thought, what a great time to get away. Ignored football for a little bit, even though I still watched it, but I went to Maine, ate a lot of lobster, drank a lot of beer, met lots of people from Kentucky, oddly, but I really enjoyed watching college football from afar, even though our Cats weren't involved.
It was one of those weekends like it where going into it, people were like, oh, this is such a bad lineup. No, there's only one ranked team playing another ranked team. And what happens? Chaos erupts across the sport.
I mean, just an all-time day of college football. Even game day. I know a lot of people probably don't watch that anymore for whatever reasons, but game day was awesome at Cal. Legitimately awesome. Like, it felt like an old school game day in a lot of ways. The games start. SMU beats Louisville in kind of a shootout. It's kind of a fun game to watch. Missouri gets absolutely spanked at College Station. But those are the only real two games in noon. So it starts off slow. And even the 3:30, it starts off a little slow. And then it's like, hey now, what's going on there in Nashville? And then that takes the whole sports attention for really 2+ hours was on that game. And then the goalpost going down Broadway. And then somehow, Nick, the night and the after dark slate ended up like living up to that kind of standard that was set for Vanderbilt, but for Vanderbilt beating Alabama. So really was, for me, I don't get to do that much anymore. Just sit down and watch games at home. And I picked the perfect day to do it. It won't get any better than that.
I was at a wedding, Max, and I kept having people come up to me and be like, Roush, you seen the score? And I'm like, Vandy's, there's no way they're still winning, right? And they like turn the phone around and it's like, oh, Vandy's still winning? And they ended up doing it. They did it. They beat Bama.
It was the best day to just sit there and not have anything to do. By the way, just real quick.
Yeah,
25 different microphones hanging from all different heights, and like you could be 7 foot tall today or 4 foot tall. We're still going to get this audio, so we're good to go. Well, I hope we're getting thumbs up.
Never say never, Max. You never know. We've been running in one technical difficulty after another, but Stephen Peak, he's putting forth his best foot forward to make sure that this one goes smooth as silk. This is probably for everybody. You know, you got to get everything right. You got to refresh, relax. It sounds like you got pretty refreshed, relaxed.
I will say my traveling was on Saturday, and it made for a lot of fun experiences. I'm in Portland, Maine at an airport bar. The guys next to me are wearing SMU gear and cheering against Louisville. My wife looks at them, she's like, well, you all need to meet. And I'm teaching them else down. I land just in time to see the Vandy, Alabama ending after taking off from Charlotte a little hour or so beforehand, just assuming in the air Vandy's blowing lead. I got to see that. So even though I was gone, I was still able to keep up with it all for the wild day.
That's incredible. It really was a shocking day. We're obviously going to spend a lot of time talking Vandy, Alabama, but can we make fun of Tennessee first?
Please.
Tennessee had no business losing that game, and they lost it. It was great. I mean, they got outplayed in the first half, but when you're getting outplayed and you're only down 3-0, you feel like your offense with this superstar quarterback, the $5 million man, you've got this incredible coaching wizard who can put up points left and right. They're definitely going to come back from a 3-0 deficit, right? And then they went up 14-3. You're up 14-3 in the third quarter. No way your quarterback will just run out of bounds as time expires and you lose the game. There's no way that could possibly happen, right? Oh, man, the volleyball player, he might just stink after all, Drew Franklin.
You know, that's a guy, I think I said on this show that I am terrified of Nico. Earlier in the season when they were onside kicking in the second quarter and beating teams 170-2. I mean, when he's not feeling pressure, he was making some great throws and looking like a true redshirt freshman quarterback that's going to be the real deal right away. But since watching the game in Oklahoma and then at Arkansas, I am not afraid of Nico with Kentucky's defense. I'm not saying Kentucky's going to win in Knoxville, but I think I crowned him way too early, as did many people.
On Mondays, Mark Stoops will have the whole team in the locker room, in the meeting room, and he always brings up one clip because you can't, as he says, you can't put them through every single situation. You got to have the experience, and you've just got to live through some things. But he'll always try to upskill us, and on a Monday he'll put up one clip and be like, guys, let's learn from this. This happened on the weekend. He probably put up that Tennessee clip and goes, guys, I don't know if you know this, but if we're down and we need a touchdown, throw the ball. Throw it, and just give us a chance. Because if we run it out of bounds, we can't score. Does everyone know that?
He had a lot of clips pulled this weekend.
And here's the thing: it's not like Tennessee hasn't done this. I don't know 3 years ago, because Nico. He did the same exact thing that Joe Milton did, and I thought I was crazy. I was like, didn't Joe Milton do the same thing? Yes, Nico and Joe Milton, they're basically the same quarterback.
Yeah, I think to Drew's point earlier about I forgot about that, the onside kick in the second quarter against whoever they were playing. Josh Heupel is not built to sit on the ball control. And the narrative, I think, out of that Oklahoma game was, hey, look at Tennessee. They're good on defense. They can win in different ways. But that's not how he wants to play football. No. And the only reason I think they're playing like that was the first time that what's going on with this passing game and this quarterback and what are teams doing? They're running like Big 12 defense. Arkansas and not to get too schematic on it, but they're running a different type of defense that has been known to like stop that kind of offense in the Big 12. And so how successful does that get, and how does Tennessee adjust? It's really kind of a huge story, I think, moving forward. But again, Josh Heupel he's doing a great job at Tennessee. You can't. Even the floor, I think his biggest accomplishment is how high he's raised their floor. Like the floor now, it feels like 9-3, 8-4 program. But how in the same situation, Nick, inside the 30, clock running out, you're down by 5 points. It was identical situation from the Joe Milton running out of bounds. Joe Milton gets flush left. Really, there wasn't a super real need to leave the pocket. Same thing happens to Nico. And then how do you just not?
Just don't throw it up. You just got to throw it up.
That was it was fascinating. And you're seeing people like clip the two together.
They look so hilarious side by side.
It really does look like the same play.
It was so funny, and that's of all the storylines we can get to this weekend, I think that was the biggest takeaway that I had, is that, okay, maybe there is something here to slowing down Heupel's offense. And you mentioned the 3 deep safety look. It wasn't just an aberration with Oklahoma. Like, this is a real... I don't know if the blueprint is out necessarily. I don't know how many times we heard whenever Tom Brady and the Patriots would get upset, and they'd be like, they put the blueprint out and beating the Patriots. But I think there is something to be said that Tennessee's offense has been getting slowed down. So we learned a little bit of something about Tennessee. And I think we also learned, too, that the Ole Miss team that Kentucky beat, they weren't just some sort of this wasn't a one-off where they just played poorly against Kentucky.
Not a paper tiger.
Yeah, it was 14-0 in the blink of an eye, and then they were never really challenged down in South Carolina.
You also learn that there's a difference between non-conference, group of 5 or FCS opponents, and then SEC football. Yeah. Like proper defense with similar athletes to what you have. You look at Ole Miss, and they were putting up unbelievable numbers, and then they go against us in South Carolina. Yeah. Admittedly, decent defenses, but all of a sudden they're scoring under 30. They put up whatever they did against us, 17, then 27. And then Tennessee is putting up record numbers as well, and then they go against Oklahoma, who the 2 parallels out of that game are unbelievable. Everyone's saying Oklahoma's the worst I've ever seen, yet somehow that makes Tennessee the best. Like, it can't be both. And that's why on Friday I was like, Tennessee's going to lose this game. And then,
Good call, Max. I was with you on that. Thank you. Yeah, we were all in on that.
Matt almost fell off his chair when I said it, but I genuinely thought they were going to lose. They're not that good. And it's just good to, always remember that until they start playing SEC games, we don't really know what these teams are like.
That's a great point, because I've kind of come to that conclusion, too, this year. Because they're almost like glorified exhibitions in a lot of ways. And we learned some stuff in September, but we don't really start learning about these teams until October.
Yeah, when you have to go on the road, too. Like, it's a completely different animal when you're going on the road in SEC play. Missouri, they're very similar, where they ain't played nobody, Paul.
Yes.
Up until that point, Vanderbilt at home was their only challenging opponent, and they won because Vandy's kicker missed a kick in double overtime. The same guy that hit like a 55-yarder missed a chip shot that would have extended the game. Instead, they lose, and then they go down to A&M, and they got their socks knocked off. I mean, that game, it was a weird call in the first quarter, and then you look up and Missouri's down by 1,000,000 points.
I did not get to watch that game live, so I can't break it down. But the A&M cornerback sending the blanket, that might be my favorite thing that's happened in sports in a long time.
Have you heard the story behind this?
I mean, I got caught up a little bit, but if you want to explain it all in case I missed bits and pieces.
Explain away, Mr. Luckett.
So Theo Weesy's probably their second best receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He had a blanket in his hotel room,
correct,
saying that Texas A&M's corner was going to wrap him up or whatever.
Exactly.
So he takes the blanket and wears it during pregame warmups. Game happens, and the game Theo Weiss is the guy who doesn't get who they remove the PI call for.
Mm-hmm.
Then once that happens, it was kind of like the Kentucky-Georgia game last year, where it was just an avalanche from the start.
Or like when Kentucky, Missouri, and you had the fake punt, and then it all just goes.
It very much was over with 10 minutes left in the first quarter. That game, like it was just a total avalanche. And so after the game, they asked Mike Elko about it because it became a big thing, and he's like, "I don't know anything about that. You probably need to ask Eli Drinkowitz."
So are we thinking this was an inside job to motivate Missouri?
Well, I read that the cornerback leaves them at the away team hotel for a receiver on the other team every game.
So is this?
So I'm more interested in just how he's able to get up in their rooms and leave them notes. It says like "Welcome to College Station." Sign his nickname's
Isn't that
the
a
blanket.
security issue?
Right.
So he's done it for every receiver, but Missouri's receiver was the first to wear it out.
So he's actually
But
done
I'm
this.
more interested in how you're so cocky and able to get into their hotel rooms to leave them a note and a blanket.
See, I don't know if I believe that. I need to see it again. I need to see the blanket.
It comes with a picture. Like we had a picture of it. There's a picture of that cornerback. I think we might have his deal here where like Brock and somebody else, they have nil deals with the Hilton downtown. So maybe somebody got an NIL deal with
a lending company.
With a hotel where the opposing team stays. A wild story overall.
There's his note. It says, "Get used to this blanket. It will be real tomorrow." Signed, William the Blanket. I can't see his last name. It's cut off.
His last name is. Yeah.
Welcome to College Station, and he leaves it in the hotel room of receivers on the other team. That's the greatest trash talk that's ever existed.
It's absolutely incredible. Hopefully there's an NIL deal involved. And here's the thing, too. KSR Football Podcast, we're brought to you by Club Blue, the official collective partner of University of Kentucky and UK Athletics. Club Blue was founded by UK fans, strictly support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. And unlike most collectives, this is where 100% of your money is going straight to the student athletes. They're not taking a little off the top to pay the guys at Club Blue. All of your money is going right where you want it to. And the best part here is you can pick a sport, pick where it's going, bada boom, bada bam. And there's plenty of perks too. So Kentucky, it's a night game, 7:45 against Vanderbilt. Club Blue members will get to hang out with members of the Kentucky basketball team near the catwalk ahead of the game. There's plenty of perks, plenty of gear, plenty of swag. So visit clubbluenil.com today. Pick the sport you want to support and help UK Athletics by supporting Club Blue NIL. That was a great troll job, though. I'm very.
You give credit where credit's due.
You really do there. It's very funny to see Missouri flame out as spectacularly as they did at A&M. But I don't think any of us could have expected the biggest upset of the day, and that was what happened at Vanderbilt. Vandy hadn't even beaten a top 5 team in its entire history of football. I would have thought at some point, Max, during the James Franklin era, like they've been in the SEC a long time. You'd think you'd knock off one top 5 team, maybe never a number 1. This is the first time they've beaten a top 5 team. Nick Saban says it's hard to win in the SEC on the road, except at Vanderbilt. And then what happens? Vandy, they went and did it. They actually freaking did it.
It was captivating TV, and there was a couple of things. First of all, the goalpost down at Broadway would have been an all-time moment if you were there, especially if you, for whatever reason, weren't watching that game and trying to figure out what was going on. Like, you might have thought there was an angry mob or something happening. It would have been so confusing to most people.
The random Nashville, it's like when the bachelorette parties were there for the NFL draft, and they just had no idea. Imagine being that random person who's just there to go to some honky tonks and drink at Morgan Wallen's bar.
Yes. Because sometimes it's really hard for me to get, like, some people don't know have a clue what's going on, like my day is consumed by these Saturdays. Some people just don't even know that there's games going on. Could you imagine just a goalpost just flying down?
Coming over the hill by Bridgestone Arena.
I had friends in Nashville. I mean, they're aware of what was going on, but they weren't there for the game. They're at a bar down the street, and they sent me video of it coming down the hill, and people that are right on the Broadway just cheering, waiting for it to make it to them. And it just kind of passes like a parade.
The other part was the commentators continually saying the Vandy section of the crowd is going nuts when they're at a home game, and they kept saying the Vandy section, and I was like, this is so sad. It's a home game. Also, it's got to be the least amount of people ever for a rush the field.
They had
an SEC football game. It was probably 2,000 people.
It very much felt like the Arrested Development meme. There are dozens of us.
Well, they did have, it was at least better than a few years ago when they got in single file line and went down into the field. That one, I forgot what game
they
was
were
that?
Like holding ropes like kids on a field trip to go storm the field together.
Yeah, that was cute. I still don't know if it tops my favorite Vanderbilt celebration, which was outside of the fraternity house after they beat Tennessee, and they're playing Rocky Top. That's good old-fashioned fun. Like, if you need a good, wholesome laugh, Vanderbilt fans dancing on Tennessee's grave to Rocky Top, that never gets old.
Nothing beats the Derek Mason interview for a 1-7 team in their only win, telling everyone how he's built.
I'm built for this.
I'm glad the old Vandy offensive lineman years ago got his day. The one that talked trash about Bama coming to Vanderbilt, and they're going to learn how this is the hardest place to play.
Defensive line.
Now they lost 49-0 that day, but he was just a few years.
He was just a few years old.
Bama guy, I think. Yeah.
Oh man! And here's the thing that was. I mean, you shared some of the advanced stats. I didn't like it, but like. Vandy never trailed in this game. They started fast, and then they had one of those big game breaks. Like, when you're going to knock off somebody, you need one of those big game breaks. We thought Kentucky got it in the pick six with Zion Childress. They got overturned. This time, the pick six, the ball pops in the air, and they got it. I don't know what the guy was doing, like running out of bounds instead of into the end zone. Like, he almost stepped out too soon. But that was just enough cushion for Vanderbilt to play that slow it down, let's be methodical, and let's let Diego Pavia go win this game for us and keep drives alive on third down.
Yeah, the pick six is a big one, but they also got one. It was either at the end of the third or the first play of the fourth quarter. Sack fumble, midfield. They go down and score, I think, to go up 8 at that point. But they were up 5, and Bama was driving. So if Bama goes and takes the lead right there, you kind of feel like they're going to win the game. Mm-hmm. So that was, I think, those two plays were the reason they won. On top of third down, they were just awesome. I mean, they were, I think, 14-19 on third and fourth down. So they were able to possess the ball and keep drives moving. And even though Bama did pretty much whatever they wanted on offense outside of those two possessions they turned it over, they were able to win the game because they possessed drives and they finished drives in the red zone.
A couple of things too. One, probably the funniest moment of the whole weekend was when Pavia spent his first minute saying thank you to God, and then his second minute swearing and saying let's get turned, which I thought was the greatest paradox of all time. And then also
he had his family on the field, and they were wearing cowboy hats and Vanderbilt jerseys. Like, that was awesome.
It was the best. And then I think you're starting to see, though, like, it's not only how good your team can be in the SEC and when these games start getting competitive, it's how bad is your worst. Because, like, Bama's bad on defense is pretty bad right now. Mm-hmm. Pretty bad. Tennessee's bad on offense is pretty bad. You're seeing all these teams, like, it's not always, again, just to reiterate my point, like, it's not always about how good is your good, it's like how bad is your worst. And I think Georgia's the epitome of that. Like, yes, they obviously dropped a game, but their worst is not, god awful. Yeah. And I think that's why them, Texas, and Ohio State are above everyone right now. Their bad is not miserable.
And we saw Kentucky's bad.
Yep.
Right? It was really bad on offense. Week 2.
Yeah, in that Vandy-Alabama game, I wasn't able to watch it. I had a weird experience. How many times were people just like, well, that's it, now it's time? Or how many people hit live bet on Bama? Just because there's so many plays, you're like, well, now it's time to flip. But as you all were saying, Vanderbilt just kept responding and keeping that lead.
I think it was at half. I think it was Bama -3 or -2.5.
I have a feeling the sports books did pretty well with the live betting on Saturday.
That's a perfect scenario to go in on Bama, and they could not get over that hump.
They could not get over the hump. Vandy ended up getting it done. Pavia was, I believe, 16 of 20 for 256 yards. And Here's one big difference between what you will see Saturday versus what Alabama did. Getting that guy to the ground. I felt like a lot of his damage in that game was just evading the initial rush and then keeping his eyes downfield and then just throwing it over the top of the second level of the defense to the tight end to get between 15 and 20 yards. And that's really, I think, what's crucial here, Luckett, in this game is when they're going to drop back pat, like you have to get him to the ground or make him make an uncomfortable bad throw. Keep him bottled up in there. I know there's this refrain among some people that running quarterbacks will carve up Kentucky. Tell that to Anthony Richardson, right? Like
hot dog water.
Yeah, there's Kentucky does a pretty good job of keeping these guys.
Lenore Sellers.
Yeah.
And then Robbie Ashford in week 2. We can talk about, but they didn't run in the football. They didn't do.
Yeah, a couple years ago, Mike Wright, he popped a 60-yard run, but aside from that one, like
every other game against Mike Wright.
Yeah, did a pretty good job of containing him. So I think if you try to translate if you're trying to compare the two games, well, it's the Alabama defense. That Alabama defense isn't the Alabama defense we're used to. If you look at the efficiency ratings, SP Plus rankings, Kentucky's defense is better than Alabama's. Like it's a little bit different. And the other part of it as well, like they've been getting gashed pretty consistently over the last 6-8 quarters. They've given up 70 points. I think in the last 6 quarters.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, so
it's a lot.
Kentucky has a very firm defensive identity. They know what they want to do. Pavia and this offensive attack, it's different than anything they've seen. But I don't think I'm not coming in this game worried about Diego Pavia necessarily. There were some people who were baffled that Kentucky's a 2-touchdown favorite. I'm not. I was hoping that Vegas would adjust and say Kentucky minus 9.5, and I would just be, give me that. Now it's around 2 touchdowns, maybe a little bit sketchier, but it does feel like that Kentucky is more built to play in one of these knockdown drag-em-outs where, you want to have a limited possession game? Alabama ran 46 snaps of offense. Kentucky's totally fine with one of these slow-down, methodical moving games. They know how to play in a rock fight, and that's kind of what I'm expecting to see Saturday night at Kroger Field.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the movement, but I was surprised they opened it that high a little bit. It was about at 10.5, I think 10.5 was when it opened, and then it's jumped to 14. It's pretty surprising to me that quickly.
People are fading the big upset. Yeah.
If this wasn't my team and I'm just watching trends and where money's moving, this is one where I'd be like, that doesn't make sense. So something's up, and I'm siding with the early money.
The something's
in Vegas.
up. Yeah.
This is a something's up game.
Yeah. That's not always everything, but they're right a lot more than they're wrong when that kind of stuff happens, I would say. So it's just something to take note of early in the week. And then, Nick, I think a big point in this game, Kentucky leads power conference teams and have it great.
Pretty good.
If you get this, Vanderbilt's offense is they're very much like Kentucky. If they're playing ahead of the chains, they're going to move the ball and have success, and that's where they get you in trouble, where they can run their bootlegs and get out in space.
Play action pass in 3rd and 4.
Live in 3rd and 3.
Yeah.
But if you can get them in some 2nd and 12s, some 3rd and 9s, you're probably going to win your fair share of battles. And another thing, the reason I think they're having so much success on offense, 1 turnover in 5 games, 5 or 6 games, whatever they played.
Yeah.
1 turnover.
That's unreal.
That's not sustainable, but that's pretty daggone impressive. 0 turnovers in both SEC games.
0 interceptions thrown by Diego Pavia.
With that said, we heard Mark Stoops talk about, he doesn't throw interceptions. He threw 16 combined, I think, the last 2 years. So it's not like he's only thrown 1 interception in his career or something. So you have seen it before. I think he's fumbled 5 or 6 times. They've been able to recover them all. And so can Kentucky, can that have it? Can that lead to a turnover? Because in this game, it very much feels like if any team gets up 2 possessions after the first quarter on, it almost would feel insurmountable, the way these 2 teams can play and possess the football. So I think that's really critical. The start is critical, but if you could ever build a two possession lead, or if you're down, you can't let it get to 2 possessions. I think that's a big point in this game.
Holding teams to field goals if you stub your toe and they got a short field.
But a point Mark Stoops made today, and I don't think many people are going to talk about, is how he liked how last week went. He likes the progression of this football team. I think the talk out of South Carolina was they weren't prepared for this game. We got the quote before the Georgia game about his, the precise game prep or whatever. Yeah. I think he likes where they're at and how they're progressing. And he opened his press conference with this. I don't have to do the whole have to explain to you that Vanderbilt's actually good. Like, the defense is going to hear about Diego freaking Pavia all week long, and now that, he could go out and have a great game, but I expect Kentucky to want to have a really good game and be motivated for this spot. And Kentucky's not been good off the bye week. We're going to probably get into those numbers, but I expect we'll see a motivated and well-prepared Kentucky team facing Vanderbilt off of the performance they just had.
Well, do y'all remember the Anthony Richardson game, right? 2022. And Todd McShay, he was doing an interview afterwards, and he was talking about how Heisman my ass, and they'd come off the sideline, and they were just ready to rip Anthony Richardson's head off. Like, they were just walked in like, this guy. They talk about how great he is, but we're going to go zip him up. That's, I think, what Luckett's kind of alluding to is they're going to put Pavia on a pedestal, and then Pop Dumas Johnson is just going to try to rip his helmet off at every chance he can. And I can't wait to see this defense motivated, hungry, ticked off, ready to go up against. I mean, like, I know Vandy's offense scored 40 points, but, like, this isn't the New York Jets, right? Like, this isn't. I mean, Jets bad comp now.
Yeah,
that's a bad comp right
I'd be
now.
happy if it was the Jets right now.
Yeah, Rodgers.
That was hard to watch.
Yeah.
Is he just old?
He's very old.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's playing, like, him and Cousins are the same thing. They just don't, like, Cousins is throwing off one foot right now because of the Achilles injury. Like, they just can't move back there. Just statues.
Cousins at least looks happy. Aaron Rodgers just looks. What made him so mad? He just looked mad at the world. Just like he's. They call it RBF, but he's got it's like a resting frown. It's not even a stoic. It's just.
Those conspiracy theories, they weigh you down, stress you out a little bit. He was looking rough, though.
He spent a lot of time in the off-season in dark rooms. Maybe he just wants them to turn the lights off.
Yeah.
Maybe he just needs some darkness to play a little
The
bit.
lights are too bright.
Maybe he was just high on ayahuasca.
What did they do drugs in London, right? Yeah.
London, Kentucky, or London, England?
I got derailed there for a second. But
Yeah, I was going to add one that you're talking about defense being motivated by Vandy's QB being put on a pedestal. And now they don't need more motivation, but I think in some ways the other results around the league, the players, because they thought since before camp, we want to be a playoff team. I mean, it's still a little unrealistic, but if you're in that locker room, you see those other things, and you might be thinking, hey, we have an opportunity to still, achieve what we want to achieve this year because some things have happened around us.
And to anyone before the season that said this is the 12-team playoffs going to make regular season games less interesting and mean less, that's one of the worst comments of all time. Like,
yeah, the games are the games.
Games mean so much, and if not, like, more now, because it doesn't just limit to the best 4 teams. Now there's 12 teams, so there's all these guys that are from 5th to 30th in the country going, we can make this playoff, and so everyone's so much more motivated for it. Like, this game genuinely means something this weekend. Like, playing Vandy in the past is like, if we win, sure, we want to win, and to our fan base it means a lot, and to theirs, well, there are 20 people that watch it, might mean a fair bit, but like, this game now means a lot. Like,
It's an elimination game.
It is an elimination game.
It's a playoff elimination game this Saturday.
Yes.
I just appreciate that we don't have to do I know First Take was doing is the mystique of Alabama gone? But you no longer are doing the Monday after this season's over, this team is dead, just take them out to pasture. Like, I like that it doesn't completely end the team season to a degree. And that, to your point, Max, the illusion of opportunity. Like, let's be real. You mentioned like the 3 off the top that are, the Ohio States, Oregon's, you maybe throw Texas in there along with Georgia. Like, those are really the only 4 or 5 teams that can actually.
Oregon's terrible, by the way.
Okay, so you got Ohio State this weekend, but. There's just still only 3 or 4 teams that can win a title, but there's a lot more that can get in the playoff, and that's like where you at least have a shot. Like, it feels like it's democratizing it a little bit for the rest of the sport. Where can you name the last first-time national champion in college football? I think Luckett can. Luckett knows off.
Yeah, Luckett will.
It would have to be Florida.
Yep, 1996, the Florida Gators.
Wow.
It's been almost 30 years since we've had a first-time national champion in this sport. So, things are a little bit more opened up now. You have more opportunities, and I love it. I absolutely love it. The games are so great. This weekend's slate is still great. Here's one other thing I love. We can maybe talk a little bit more Vanderbilt, but I need to address a few buffoons. Before I do that, before I talk
Are you talking about us or people?
No, like the other really big dumb idiots on the internet,
So
and you know who you are. This segment of Dumb Idiots is brought to you by AARP Kentucky. There's a lot on the line this election. For protecting Social Security, you've earned it. Supporting family caregivers, and you have the power to make the candidates listen, because voters 50 and over, they decide elections. That's why AARP Kentucky has created an election guide with the most up-to-date information about when, where, and how to vote. Make sure the candidates hear from you. Get trusted election information at aarp.org/KYVotes. aarp.org/KYVotes. Paid for by AARP. If you aren't well informed, you can go to that website. If you're also listening to certain radio stations in Louisville, you aren't informed on how the sport of college football works. And what disappointed me,
They're gonna love this,
is going into the Louisville SMU game. It wasn't just the doofuses that think that Louisville is God's gift to the sport of athletics, and these people who just have no concept on how small potatoes they are in the grand scheme of college football. There's people I like out there who know their stuff. Eric Crawford, Rick Bozich, they've been doing this for 40 years, right? Mike Rutherford, he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders. Like Mike, great guy over at the Big X. But everybody over there assumed that because Louisville won a bunch of one-score games against a terrible schedule, that they were going to be perennial ACC championship game, that they were playing it every single year. That was the standard, is playing in the ACC championship game. You're an 8-4 program, and there's nothing wrong with that. I wish we could have an 8-4 season in Kentucky. It's either 7-5 or 9-3. But to think that all of a sudden, because you won a bunch of one-score games and you upgraded a quarterback, that all of a sudden you were going to be better, and that, we've got a harder schedule, but we're still going to beat SMU. We're still going to have no problem with these guys. This delusion that they are going to fill up a 60,000-seat stadium every single week, and that they are going to beat teams like a Pulp in the ACC just because Jeff Brom was there. It's ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous, and I don't know why they thought that just because SMU is a worse brand than Louisville, Drew. What's Louisville football? They're just another ACC school. They had a great year last year.
Is SMU a worse brand?
Exactly. They had the Pony Express. I just don't understand why they thought that they were just going to walk in and beat SMU, or they were just going to walk in and beat Notre Dame. There was people who had tickets that just didn't go to Notre Dame. They were like, it's fine. We'll probably win. It'll be cool. Who do you think you are? I don't understand that.
There needs to be an amendment. It's not Power 4, it's Power 3. That is the biggest joke of a conference I've seen. Clemson's doing their best to try and maybe keep them somewhat above water, but that's the worst conference. I mean, they may as well just be a group of 5.
They will be soon.
It's terrible.
Very soon.
The thing is, too, we talked about on the way up here, but they played a bunch of nobodies last year, and everybody objectively knew that they played a bunch of nobody loser football teams in the ACC. They lost to one of them in Pitt, but they were able to overcome the other ones. As much as the ACC is a joke, Boston College is at least fun and frisky. Pitt's undefeated at this point. SMU is probably,
The top 25.
They're a top 25 team. They're solid. To just think that all of a sudden you're not playing the sub 500 teams, that all of a sudden you're just going to walk in there. The naivete from Louisville fans to just think that they are among college football's elites and just ACC title every year is silly. It was absolutely silly. And now you're in a situation where, when was the last time they beat a team with a pulse? 11 months ago?
There's a lot on Twitter. You can find that stat.
It's been a long time ago. So while they're bringing up all your, Mark Stoops hasn't won anybody, beating a team with a winning record in SEC play, blah, blah, blah. Go have fun beating Georgia Tech. Dorks.
They're not beating Georgia Tech.
No, they did.
They did, but
I hate that.
They shouldn't have, though. They actually should have won the Notre Dame game and lost the Georgia Tech game, but it kind of happened the opposite.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Outside of meeting my SMU friends, shout out them, I watch 0 minutes of Louisville sports when they're not playing Kentucky. However, I am very sad that our Governor's Cup line is going to be affected by this.
That's not, because it's more.
I wanted them to just keep winning.
It's more fun to ruin their season, because how many times has Kentucky been an underdog in that series?
A lot.
Yeah.
And even when they've been favored, it's been a point and a half. It's all been within a field goal.
Yes, but the storyline of that game, and you know this, Nick, that's going to be the Jeff Brom Super Bowl.
Oh man, it'd be a real shame if they lost it again.
Because that's it, and that's going to end up being their the season for them, right? Now we have to see, they can still make the SEC championship game.
That's where the league is.
Being honest, but I think for Louisville last year, and I've talked about this for Kentucky, and we talked about it's why I thought Missouri was a legit playoff contender. Why Tennessee had a really good runway, but they lost to Arkansas, which is unfortunate. But your schedule sets up everything. Like you look at SMU's schedule, they're going to be in the conversation to the bitter end because now you look at their schedule, it's like, whoa, SMU's like this year's Louisville.
Yes. Coming in the league new, you've got an easy, your toughest games are at home. You should be able to tee off.
Louisville they get Notre Dame, they pick off Notre Dame after Notre Dame played Ohio State, and they played like two big games in the Duke. They played Duke in a big game. Game day was there. Then they went to Louisville, and Louisville got them in a great spot, beat them. You got to give them credit for that. But then they beat a lot of barely bold and non-bowl teams.
Yep, had to go on the road and beat Miami on two guys ran into each other. They scored a 70-yard touchdown at the end of the game.
They draw Duke when they didn't have Riley Leonard. And and you have to give them credit for that. But a lot of this college football it's schedule based for a lot of teams, I think, every year. For Kentucky, that's why it was so hard this year, because you felt like roster wise, talent wise, they've got the pieces here, and I think we've seen that the last 2 weeks. But the schedule makes it difficult.
Yes.
Now, if you have a different schedule, and that's what it's based in. And for Louisville this year, I think you look at the schedule's just a lot more harder than it was last year. SMU is a legitimate top 25 team. Pitt looks like a top 35 team. Notre Dame's probably a top 20 team who also might be in the playoff, not because they're really good. Notre Dame's team last year was probably better, but their schedule's a lot easier. And so they've got a runway here. Schedule has a lot to do with this new world.
It's like, and they're going to drop one, so I wouldn't be taking this. But Indiana's a legitimate chance to be a playoff team because of their schedule.
Yes.
6-0 already. They're going to play a terrible Michigan at home. The only game that they've got is against Ohio State, I believe, at Ohio State. But if you drop that one, that doesn't matter.
Right.
They could legitimately be a playoff team, and they probably don't have a top 30 team talent-wise.
It probably won't have a top 30 win. That's like they could probably only afford to drop that one because we're going to start. You aren't seeing it yet, but in November, it'll be like the NCAA tournament where we're going to have blind resumes and strength of schedule put up next to one another. That's on the horizon. The other thing that hurts Louisville's schedule, too, is, they're having to play up against Pee Wee football games, the St. James Art Fair. It's really hard to get people to go to games when there's Pee Wee football happening on Saturday.
That is their biggest issue. We can't talk about their football, their defensive philosophy, losing close games, transfer portal, yada, yada, yada. The fans don't show up to the games. So that is their biggest issue. You can't be a good program when that happens.
At least they showed up to Louisville live, Drew.
Yeah, but I was going to ask you all this before we started joking on them. Are they seriously broken as a fan base? People will sometimes ask me, you don't hate on Louisville anymore. I'm like, I genuinely don't hear from them. They don't go to things. I just forgot they played Georgia Tech. I don't watch them.
Unless they're punching people at exhibition basketball games.
Other than that, but is this other than that, because I was there, but are they broken beyond repair?
Forgot that you got punched at an exhibition basketball game.
But really, you should have excitement in Pat Kelsey. I know we're not here to talk basketball, but that was a sad turnout. Unbelievably sad football turnout on a great day. I'm just wondering, will they ever get to anything like that run they had? It seems people have literally just been like, I'm done following this team.
A college freshman on Louisville's campus last saw them win an NCAA tournament game when they were, I think, 8 years old.
So,
it's been.
Are they broken? But you all live there.
That's what I think. That's what a lot of it is.
Scandal fatigue is a big part.
Yeah, the thing was, Drew, is I thought last year got them all back. I thought that was what they needed to get over all the scandals and finally they got rid of Kenny Payne, they got Braun, they got this new guy he's kind of a dork but he's got energy. You thought that would get them all back on board, but it's clear that they need more because the St. James Art Fair is just such a big drop.
I should be hating on the St. James Art Fair. I need that rivalry back.
Inexcusable. It's inexcusable. Braun had them. He had a top 35 roster team in the top 10 in November. They mattered in the big picture of college football last year. And the first big game they play, it's too hot. It's a concert. What is going on? They play SMU at noon on September 28th. It was a hot day, but guess what? It's not that hot in the morning. And look at the crowd. The flight deck, Nick, there was no one up there.
Yeah.
I came over here in 2018, and all I heard was like Louisville rivalry, all that kind of stuff. I haven't even ever in my life even done an L's down because I don't get what the rivalry is. Like what? They've never been close.
You have to live there.
I understand. Never been close to football. Basketball's been terrible. I don't know anyone that actually supports them. Like to me, it just seems really, really strange that this is even a rivalry because it hasn't been for the last 6 years that I've been.
And think about it, Max. Like, Stoops and all of them, if somebody says something they're not supposed to in interviews, right? Like, that gets nipped in the bud. Dion, just like the leader of the team, comes out and is talking trash before the Louisville game last year, and they're like, yeah, do it, because we're going to go and we're going to go kick their ass. And what do? They go and wreck their season. It is in a very weird spot right now.
Didn't Barry Brown give the band L's down walking onto the field? I mean,
and
that set the tone right there. The flutist is getting L's down for Kentucky's star player.
That moment that was as down as I think the fans were on the Stoops era. At one point, that's about as down as I think we've all the fan base has been.
Oh,
and
man.
then they beat Louisville, and it just like pulled everybody back.
Flips the script. And similarly, though, just how, it's so weird. If there's any lesson we can learn about last weekend, I think we got to experience a lot of it the weekend before, but on any given Saturday, you can get humbled in this sport, and it can completely change your outlook on a season. Yeah. Where were we a month ago? This was doom and gloom. People thought that Mark Stoops didn't care about coaching football anymore, and then he goes down and beats Ole Miss and is just, it looks like he was going to rip his freaking shirt off on the field. It is amazing what can change in a week. And to bring it back to this week in the game prep, Stoops had a line today where he said, you can be fired up for a game, but that doesn't mean you're dialed in. And he mentioned it in the South Carolina game, Max, where he was like, I don't think it's not that they were trying hard, they just weren't executing. That's, for me, the whole can Stoops buck the teams aren't prepared out of a bye week, because that is something we're going to hear about a lot this week. I tend to think that up until this point, they just keep taking steps forward, and they're proving it by showing up in practice and then showing up on game days. I just want to see them continue to push that envelope and taking one step forward at a time.
It sounds boring because the fans love the Stoops, putting a chair through the whiteboard. What does he have to do to motivate him this week? If you have to try to pull things and motivate people for one day on a Saturday, then you haven't done the preparation. And so as a football team, whether we win or lose this game is a little bit, it's probably the little icing on the cake this week of the preparation that we're doing leading up to Vandy or whatever game it's going to be. But 97% of your stuff is done from January or the day after you finish your bowl game. Of all the preparation you do day in, day out, application to weights, application to just becoming a better athlete, diet, all that kind of stuff. And it's the most boring answer, and people hate that because they want to hear
football coach.
They want to hear him yell, but that's the part where you can't just rely on emotion to win these games. And whenever people go, what does he have to do to get him ready for this week? It's what have we been doing for the last 9 months? That's what's more important.
Coach speaking.
It's so coach speaking, but also if that's how you get through your team, then it doesn't matter.
That's what gets you to number 12 in high school football in Kentucky right now.
62-0.
Yeah, exactly.
I think he knows what he's talking about.
We won the last two games black and white.
That's how good he is.
See, but that's the thing. Don't need me on game day if we've done the preparation. Dude, you don't need any coach. The hay was in the barn. We were done.
There's actually no better example of what Max was just trying to stress than Max himself. The work was done before Fort Knox. He didn't even go.
To Max's point, I think we know how good the defense is, but you want to see the offense get better. We've seen, I think, 3 good steps since that South Carolina disaster.
Yeah.
They played better against Georgia. They did some good things against Ohio, inferior competition, obviously, but I think they ran for 200, threw for 200, and then they did some good things to win the Ole Miss game. And I think you've seen Bush Hamden do a really good job since then. I think you've seen them kind of fix some of their protection issues. And now you want to see, okay, this is the worst defense they've played in the SEC, Vanderbilt. Might be the worst defense they see all year in the SEC. Might be the worst power conference defense they'll face. So what can you do against that, and what progress can you make? Because I think what we've seen in the past with Stoops teams, bye week comes, and then the offense kind of gets in a funk, right? 2018, the win game against Vandy, that obviously sticks out to me. So can you keep progressing and getting better as an offense? Because if they can do that with this defense, then they get like, wow, this team is pretty dang on good.
Especially with how well Dane Key played the last 2 weeks, stacked up back-to-back 100-yard receiving games. He only had one in the first 2 years of his career, and then put back-to-back out there. And then for me, a lot of what I would love to see Barry and Brown, like just you had that one big play, you had that moment. Let's build on that, right? Like, because even in the kick returns, I haven't had that moment like, oh, he's gonna take this one. Like, we haven't had those sort of let's try to capture some of that lightning in the bottle and get more explosive plays, particularly in the passing game.
I've obviously never been in their shoes, but I would think playing a game like that at Ole Miss and then having to sit out a weekend, you're just going to be hungry to get out and see if you still have more of that momentum going. Like, get me back out there. We're hot. I'm going to keep riding it. And then you add in Vandy on top of it, and that's why I think all of this, getting motivated, shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. If I'm Dane Key, I'm thinking I am on fire right now. Get me on the field as quick as possible. Same with Brown. That offense finally getting some points on the board.
I have a question. With Chip out for undisclosed amount of time, probably season, are we thinking that we'll see Wimsatt permanent running back at some points? Legitimately, we've only got 2 or 3 or whatever we've got.
Patterson hasn't played since week 2.
Exactly.
He played it one series.
With some guys getting hurt and all, are we going to have to, just through necessity, and he's good enough to do it, but through necessity, see him actually just line up at running back? And it's not a gimmicky type thing?
I think you'll just see the Wildcat stuff, specifically red zone.
Well, particularly because they want to use that to get numbers advantage, right? You use the running back as an extra blocker, or at least to pull a linebacker out of the box. But to your point, Stoops at least confirmed that Chip did suffer a setback, and that's why he's out. He would not address Maxwell Harrison's absence or lack thereof. I'm just going to consider him out until we hear otherwise. But the one thing that was intriguing, you spotted this in some of the pictures they shared last week. Hardly Gilmore back at practice. He suffered a broken collarbone in August. Here's a quote that Bush Hamden had about Hardly Gilmore, and I actually pulled the wrong post up, so my apologies. I had the quote.
Just
I was
the quote up.
But he's as good.
Hardly Gilmore is the next Jerry Rice.
I mean,
next on Get Up.
He basically said that though.
All right, Chris.
But it was as effusive praise as I've ever heard about a true freshman. Stoops basically gave us a we'll see. He said if he's good enough to play, then we're going to play. We're not going to shackle him with a red shirt just because we want to keep him around for another year. Here was Bush's quote. He is, in my opinion, as complete of a young receiver as I've ever been around. He's got top-end speed. He's a good route runner. He's tough. He's physical. There's a lot of things there. And every once in a while, you get these freshmen where they don't even recognize the lights. They don't know if it's big lights, small lights. They don't even know what it is. They're just excited to be in the SEC playing for a coach like Mark Stoops. There's no, I got to save myself for a year. He only knows one speed. So this might be just a fun ace in the hole to roll out. I don't know if we're going to get that against Vanderbilt, but that is you don't get, normally, I know this was right after he was injured and they're trying to say, but they were talking about this guy.
He was receiver 3 buzz in fall camp with him.
Yeah, he was the next Jerry Rice. He was better than Barry and Brown as a freshman. And so that's just something to put a pin in, keep an eye on, that can maybe help your offense be more explosive. He was in full pads at practice, so if he can do that last week, then I would think you would see him at least as questionable on Wednesday night's availability.
And with Stoops' kind of we'll see or no comments on these injuries, the new protocol is just going to be wait until the injury report on Wednesday.
Can we just quit doing the depth chart? I'm tired of posting
the depth
it. It's
chart,
just a waste. It's a complete waste of time.
Does not mean anything.
Yeah,
Dylan Ray is the backup right guard. He's going to start.
Yeah, what are we doing here?
So, especially with the injury reports coming out, you get your depth charts as the week goes on for these SEC games.
I was getting really excited for that quote when I glanced across to your laptop and I had the Gettysburg Address up, and I was like, "Are you sure about that one?" And I thought you were just going to go with it. That sounded really good.
Yeah. I do like the takeaway from this will be Nick Roush says the next Jerry Rice is on Kentucky Friday. Just waiting to come in.
It's a title. Speaking of depth chart, no Jamarion Wilcox, but Vanderbilt, the run defense is very glitchy. They give up big plays on the ground. We've seen Wilcox pop some, but he's been close and hasn't broken one yet. Mm-hmm. He's a wild card for Saturday. Don't be surprised if he has a really big game.
Oh, something to keep an eye on.
Prop advice.
Yeah, prop advice for sure.
What are our? Do we have concerns? Like, what would be the? We're sitting here next Monday and we're ticked off. Wow, what leads to that frustration?
The Vandy 25 supporters go and get those goalposts out of the river and walk them all the way to Lexington and come into the stands holding them. Man, that could fire them up.
It's a long walk past the dinosaur, Cave City. It's a long walk.
Kentucky down under, Kangaroos.
Past the Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
You have to stop there.
Walk 500 miles.
Yeah.
It's not quite 500.
The Proclaimers?
That's all,
I don't know if Vandy fans are built for this upcoming week in Lexington. They're going to be overwhelmed by all the things going on and how many Kentucky fans are here with your choose your own adventure.
This has to be the most hype ever for a Kentucky Vanderbilt game, right?
It's up there, I would have to think,
It's the first time in the history of Kentucky football that both teams are coming into a game fresh off of beating a top 10 team. Never happened before in the history of Kentucky football. That was a fun Corey Price stat.
My favorite stat from all that was Vanderbilt scored 13 total points in the Nick Saban era against Alabama, and they had 13 in the first quarter.
That is
the Alabama fans. We don't need to get into it too. The Alabama fans were very quick to forget they beat Georgia last week. I mean, DeBoer just beat Georgia, which probably made them feel like the happiest supporter base in the history of college football. Into we lost to Vandy, and now they want to kill him again.
Well, earlier in the show, you mentioned how in the new format with the playoff, it's not really the sky is falling when you lose a game. Go to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, the sky's on the ground.
Go right now.
Just imagine if Ryan Williams doesn't have that 75-yard touchdown, and then they blew a 30-point lead to Georgia at home, and then lost to Vandy.
Is Harley Gilmore better than him?
Maybe he's only 17 years old too. Another 17-year-old. But
to your point about worried, red zone offense.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky, how did they score against? They got a PI, 2 PIs in the red zone.
Yep.
First one, Gavin Wimsatt fumbled on the goal line, and they had to recover it to score a red zone touchdown. Like, that would be a concern to me. I think when Vandy beat them, that was an issue. Was the red zone.
leaving points on the board.
So that would be concerning to me in this game.
When I was looking through, you just go through all the stats and here's where Kentucky's good, here's where they're bad. It's the red zone touchdown percentage on offense, and then defensively, they've been leaky on big plays, big explosive plays, and. I mean, this is kind of a get-right spot for the Kentucky defense in that regard because they don't have a lot of big explosive playmakers. But, if those are your two weaknesses and Vandy exploits them, then you can get in trouble against this Commodore team. So, just don't leave it up. They got a pretty good kicker, too. He's no Alex Rayner, but he's a pretty good kicker. So, keep that in mind. It's just Rayner. I like when he makes the field goals, but I don't want him. It's such a weird.
I like when he makes them. I hate when he misses them.
Well, but I don't want him to kick so many. Last year was we got this good kicker.
Yes.
He's made how many field goals he made this year? Is it 11 so far?
9 or 11? Is it 11 already? I thought it was 9 and 9.
Okay, all right. He might have.
He was 11 of 12 last year, I believe.
That's what I mean. You're almost at your entire last season output. Are we?
Kyle told us to shut up.
I saw
that wouldn't be a very good podcast, Jerry.
Told us to shut up.
About the
Now we're back.
We're talking about
that was me.
We're back. Yeah, I don't want Alex Rayner kicking so many field goals. He's got as many makes field goals as he did last year. That's too much to ask.
You can kick game winners.
Yes, game winners, cool. Let's just touchdowns.
We don't want to overwork the guy.
Yeah, you know, he's older, right? Don't want to get him tired.
Yeah, but I mean, as long as we can get enough points to win, I don't care how many touchdowns we get.
How crazy is it how good kickers are right now?
Come on, Nick. He's right there.
Holders are very good right now.
Yeah, but was it holders or was it snapper?
It was a play calling.
It was the hold.
It was the hold.
I think it was coach's decision, then hold, then kick.
It was a good snap. He just straight up dropped it.
Moment
Tried
was
to get
too
down
big.
too fast.
Maybe they could have just had Joe Burrow throw another touchdown. I mean, he had 5. What's another one, you know?
Yeah.
Just moving the ball as much as they wanted.
And then they just were like, Jamar Chase, we don't need to throw you the ball more.
Sorry, Luckett.
Yeah.
Generally felt for you yesterday.
I just wish I could be as much of a diehard as some of you sickos that were up till 2:30 a.m. watching Cal and Miami, and then woke up.
I did that.
And then woke up at 9:30 and
I
watched the
actually watched
London
Texas
game,
Tech.
and then stayed up through the rain delay
all
for the
that.
Steelers. Yeah, because I couldn't.
Did all
I
that.
wanted to stay awake for Steelers.
Actually, you just described my Saturday and Sunday perfectly.
I'm so jealous. That sounds
It was
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
Because I had Texas Tech money line, and they did win. So I just wanted to stay up and watch it. Then I took Miami live, so I was having a great night.
Oh, nice.
And woke up nice and early because I wanted to see the Jets get beaten. They got beaten, and then took the Cowboys money line, and they won. So probably the greatest little
everything's
48 hours
coming
of
up
my life.
max
Yeah.
right now. So who you got tonight?
Tonight, you'd have to think that the Chiefs win by exactly 3, like they always do. Somehow they'll get a late call. Harrison Butker, whose wife will probably not be in attendance, probably getting his dinner ready, he will kick a game-winning field goal, and he will go home to some perfectly cooked dinner, exactly how it should be, and everything will be well in the world.
I just had to get done.
I didn't do the Max Duffy full weekend, but I did the Jets kickoff until halftime of the Cowboys game when I finally caved and fell asleep. Hell of a Sunday. We need more London into rain delays where it's just every minute is football.
If you, do yourself a favour, I know sometimes people make fun of my accents or say they like it, etc., etc. Go and listen to the English commentary of the Jets-Vikings game. It's incredible. It is so, they're trying to do it for the first time, so they're trying to be, captivating and all that. The accents are unbelievable. And just, the little things that they throw in about the game that make no sense, but make sense to someone like me is so good. Just the views on everything. Just go listen to, 10 minutes of it. It's perfect.
Were they better than Tom Brady?
And they're still better than Tom Brady, yeah.
Oh man, well they couldn't have been as bad as Deshaun Watson is at playing football. That guy stinks. The Browns are sad. Washington.
This doesn't cost much money.
Sorry, Lonnie, if you're listening.
Yeah, sorry about that. Joe Flacco might be so good at football though. So at least the Browns, they could have had him.
Some other Cats news. Wandale Robinson, put your phone down when you're celebrating.
And Brandon Eccles' interception. I feel like no one ever talks about Brandon Eccles.
We do forget
good.
Brandon Eccles.
Forgettable.
He's great.
He had the fumble recovery got overturned on the punt, but yeah, he had a good game yesterday.
Trevin Wallace rocking the Kentucky T-shirt in the locker room after his first start. That was kind of nice.
Yeah, he had a bunch of tackles.
Yeah.
James
They lost to the
Davis
Bears.
might be on one of the best teams in football.
The Commanders being good at offense, it's just weird to see. It's like what am I looking at here? I don't really understand it. The football witching hour, that was some good stuff yesterday. Football, it's so much fun. We hope you got to enjoy your bye week. I did a little time at Keeneland. Drew, did you know that you can't go in the normal entrance at Keeneland?
Oh yeah, it's under construction.
Yeah, so you
They're
got
building a big fancy entrance.
Yeah, they're getting a little fancy up there, but you can go. We went in the north side. You can still go in around the corner if you're walking up the hill facing to the left. That was nice. It wasn't too
How'd you do?
crowded for
I
opening
know
day.
you like to put a little down. How'd
We
you do?
had 4 or 5 straight winners.
Okay.
It was chalky, so they weren't big winners, but I think it covered all my beers.
Winning's winning.
All right, so 2 things great about Keeneland. One, huge plus, they take cash. All of you venues that say we don't take cash, get the hell out of here. It's American dollar bills. This is money. It's currency. You have to take it. It drives me insane. Especially at a racetrack. Churchill Downs does that bull crap now. It's dollar bills. Take it.
You've seen some of those older employees at Keeneland, who I love, but they're not figuring that out either. They're also give me the cash.
Yeah, it's a racetrack. Cash is king when you're watching the sport of kings. Here's the other thing, though, Keeneland. Why are you charging people for programs? Every program is just on your phone for free. I just want the paper thing so I can smack it on my head when I'm saying, get up the road. Why are you making me pay for a program? You charge $13 to get in. The program should be free.
That's how they pay the credit card bills.
Yeah, that new entrance isn't going to pay for itself. And
That's ridiculous.
Glad you made money, though.
Yeah, we made a little bit of money. It was a good time. Beautiful day. It's going to be beautiful weather out there. So hopefully you enjoy it. More families than I'm used to seeing out of Keeneland.
I haven't been out there in a while. Was it slammed being opening weekend?
It wasn't that crazy for Friday. So I was 2 thumbs up for the most part. It's just Keeneland. It's a good time. Good horses. They're good. It's a fun time. Hopefully you enjoy it this weekend. You can do the double dip with the late night kick. We've got another late night kick down at the Swamp next Saturday, so you'll be able to get a full day of races if you want to, and then go watch the game at home.
I've got the perfect setup for this Saturday because, respectfully to Kentucky Vandy, as fun as that game's going to be, I've got the box organised for this Saturday night, so I get to watch the Ohio State-Oregon game and the is it Tennessee's the other game? Whatever other good games going on at the same time. The bad thing about going live to the game is you don't get to see the other good games going on.
No, we all watch his iPad. We hover around.
Yeah, make sure that I've got some good seats this weekend, so I'll be up with the elite. So
rubbing elbows.
Can't hide money.
Oh man, well,
can't get into Fort Knox.
Us peasants will be.
We'll be watching the iPad.
I'll text you through the scores.
I appreciate that.
It all relies on you. It's your iPad.
When you didn't show up for the wedding, we were like, oh my God, how did we forget the iPad?
We weren't 2 minutes into that game you missed. Like, how do we even keep up with sports here?
Oh man, it was brutal. But it's going to be a great weekend of college football. Hopefully capped off by a Kentucky win over Vanderbilt. 7:45 kickoff. Might as well be 8. So prepare accordingly. We'll have more Kentucky Vandy 111 personnel later this week. A pigskin preview, a fade disc. So much happening. We appreciate you joining us here on the KSR Football Podcast.